Hey everybody, we are live on Google Hangouts. My name is Adam Moore. We also have on the line Len Pettis from the Bible Thumping Wingnut show. Also joining us is Scott Phillips, he actually lives relatively close by to me, and we're going to be talking a little bit about stuff going on with The Walking Dead. On the Informed and Reloaded show.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, there's Jovan.
Is that better?
Yeah, we also got Jovan
Way
Mackenzy
better.
here. Jovan, we started live. We weren't sure, so we just.
No, that's no problem at all, man.
All right, cool. You sound really good now. So.
Way better.
Jovan Mackenzy is a musical artist and going to be starting his own podcast soon. Isn't that right?
Yeah, man. Yep. Yes, sir.
Awesome. So yeah, we'll talk a little bit about what's been going on with Walking Dead. Maybe bring a little scripture on this, and kind of see where it goes from there. So, Scott, have you been watching the show since the beginning?
I got into it, I think, a few years after it started, because, I heard people talk about it, but I didn't follow it. But then I got into it, and now I'm pretty much caught up with everything. It's kind of hard to, watch it at college, because our channels don't have AMC, so I've had to, shall we say, use sources of questionable legality to watch the show. But, I'm pretty much caught up. I've been having problems watching season 5, but I've spoiled it by watching reading people's recaps. So I pretty much know what's going on.
Yeah. What about you, Len?
Yeah, I've been watching it since on Netflix. So I've always been a season behind up until last year, where I found a website where I can watch the Walking Dead within 10 minutes after it goes off the air on AMC on Sunday nights. So, yeah, I follow it very closely.
Probably blocked on my network, though, because my college is a Taylor University. It's a Christian college, and they have, a web filter that, blocks a lot of things, and sometimes that makes it hard to watch TV shows.
Jovan, what about you?
Yeah, believe it or not, man, I started watching it. I would say about 2 months ago.
Wow, and you caught up?
Yeah, I caught up. I've been watching season 5 live every week on Sunday, and what happened was, I heard about the show. I used to see it on people's timelines, and I watched the first show maybe 2 years ago. I was behind, and I saw season 1, episode 1, and I'm just not a person that's big into gore. So not for sinful reasons, just for, I just don't, it's not something I like seeing. So I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be watching this. And then, I just kept hearing about it so much from different believers and whatnot. I said, man, let me give this a try. And I read an article by Marcus Pittman about the show. And I said, let me give it a try, man. So I really started watching it, man. And after I watched the first full episode, I was hooked and caught up.
Yeah, that's an interesting point about the gore factor, and most Christians have some kind of conscious awareness of the media input that they intake. They're interested in exhorting themselves and building themselves up. And the issue is, a lot of the shows that are on TV that are really well written, or they're really compelling because the storylines and things like that have things in them that are sinful. And so
yeah,
we can even talk about that now. Normal, for instance, I was kind of down on other people watching the show Breaking Bad until I heard the people from Apologia Radio, Marcus Pittman, they were all talking about kind of how great the show was, and I was like, come on, who's the good guy in that show?
Yeah. I just had a convo about that.
Say again?
I just had a convo with some people about these issues right here, about, what should Christians be watching and whatnot.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe you could share with us what you think. Why should or shouldn't a Christian be watching a certain thing?
Well, I would say number one, that when we read, even when we read Scripture, the Bible clearly gives us there's a lot of sin in the Bible but the Bible never endorses sin, right? So y'all can hear me good?
Yeah.
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 So the Bible never endorses sin, but there's all kind of sinful acts. I mean, you read about Abraham sleeping with Hagar, and you read about David, and there's pictures and elements, and you have wars, and there's all kind of stuff that the Bible doesn't run from reality. It paints it paints depravity as depravity. It paints sexual immorality. It shows that it doesn't tiptoe around it to not offend those who are reading it, whether it be a Christian or non-Christian. So when we look at art, the first thing that people say is Christians, and I was one of those as well. Like you were saying, Adam, I was one of those as well that used to say, man, how could a Christian watch this or that? And the point of the film or the television show, like for example, Breaking Bad or a Walking Dead, Christians will say, well, it has sin in it. There's gore. There's there's violence. There's lying, whatever, right? And then I'll tell them, hey, do you watch Narnia? Do you watch Courageous? Do you watch Fireproof? And they're like, yeah, well, that's a Christian movie, whatever. And I say, well, there's a bunch of sin in there, and I start naming it. Fireproof. There's pornography. The guy's watching pornography. He's a very angry man. The woman is cheating on her husband, flirting with the guy at work. Chronicles of Narnia, there's witchcraft, sorcery, lying, violence. And so I show them, you're not even being consistent with your own belief, right, that if a movie has sin in it, you turn it off. So the issue is not, does a movie have sin in it? The issue is, number one, does that film or whatever that you're watching, does that cause you to sin? So like, for example, if I was watching Walking Dead and there was a bunch of nudity in it, I would turn it off personally, or at least that scene, because I don't want to lust. That would cause me to sin, right? But the violence and gore doesn't cause me to want to go out and kill somebody. And not only that, but if you watch Walking Dead, it's not glorifying sin, right? So people will say, well, what about all the gore and violence? Well, any of us, if we had some zombies or even human beings like the Terminus trying to attack our family or friends, guess what? We're going to defend them.
Right.
That means bloodshed. It's going to look gory. It's not going to be like, man, I shot him in the head and it looked like, you know what I'm saying? Right. It looked like a 2-year-old drawing. Like, no, it's there's nothing beautiful or pretty about it. So it's painting a graphic depiction of, it's not exaggerating reality, but it's actually showing reality as if you were in a post-apocalyptic world. That's how it would look. So a lot of Christians, they're quick to say, well, I heard a word that I thought was derogatory or something, or I saw something that was against the Bible, so I have to turn it off. But they don't apply that to every area of life. And so I would challenge believers, number one, if it causes you to sin, then I don't think personally, that's something that you should watch. But also, the bigger issue is what is the portrayal of the movie? Like if you watch Batman, the goal is not to say, hey, go out there and be like the Joker and just, you know what I'm saying? And
right.
The goal is justice, right? Like Law and Order. The goal of Law and Order is not, hey, let's be pedophiles and rapists, right? The goal is they're trying to portray reality and showing you, hey, guess what? If you do these things, there are consequences for your actions. So I think that applies right with Walking Dead. Will be the same thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that it's one of those things, like you said, if it's just describing sin without promoting sin, that's a completely different thing with our entertainment choices versus some of the raunchy comedy that Hollywood puts out that is clearly a promotion of sin.
Yeah.
And it's sin just for the sake of sin, for the enjoyment of it. Whereas, like you say, with The Walking Dead or even with Breaking Bad, which I'm also a fan of, those movies, those TV shows, it is like you're saying that's how it is. Like, same thing with like Heisenberg or Walter White on Breaking Bad. Like that's what struck me about Breaking Bad. What was instructive about it and very theological is the downward spiral of sin and its false promise of the false promise of sin that it never delivers on its promises. It's a law of diminishing returns, right? So but you do have to be selective, because there is clearly entertainment that does promote sin. But ultimately, it's like you have to be convinced by your own conscience. If it bothers your conscience to watch a show like The Walking Dead, don't watch it, dudes. The reason I watch Walking Dead is because like zombie apocalypse movies are my guilty pleasure, bro. Like anything zombies, I'm all in. Like that will keep me stuck to the TV, bro. And I don't know. I don't think anyone can argue that a zombie apocalypse movie or television show in and of itself is sinful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think, Scott?
I mean, yeah. I mean, there's not much left to say in regards to that. I think you all kind of hit the nail on the head when it came to that. Yeah.
Well, here the thing that I think is interesting is John Piper was actually talking about something like this, and the kind of the difference, and Jovan brought this up, the difference between like violence, because I know that the violence isn't really happening toward that person, like it's a set, like they walk off the set, they're friends and things like that. But the thing about nudity is different because that person's really naked. Like
That's
I'm
right.
really seeing somebody who's actually naked.
That's right.
I can't take that back. So I think there definitely is a difference between the violence aspect, like the sinful aspect, things going on, and then actual nudity, and so that's kind of a different situation. I know in Walking Dead there's really not any nudity in that. In Breaking Bad there is a little bit, but they added those scenes back in when they put it on Netflix, and originally they weren't on the original show. So, but I did want to bring up a particular issue like in the show which happened in last season 4. So you had a situation where Carol and Tyrese had the two young girls, and one of them was just, for lack of a better term, bat crap crazy, and not understanding that the zombies were bad and they couldn't be redeemed, and they were going to eat them. And then she ends up killing the other girl.
Yeah.
And then when that happens, Carol and Tyrese are obviously devastated, and they kind of both realize, I guess, amongst themselves that like they have to eliminate the threat, and so like from a post-apocalyptic, in the post-apocalyptic world, that makes complete sense to me, because it's like this girl is going to kill us in our sleep. She's a liability. She's a danger. But now, like, fast forward that into, or transpose that into like our ethic, our Christian worldview, and like, so what does the Christian think about like Carol killing the girl? Any thoughts on that?
I was going to say real quick. Yeah, just to add on to kind of answer that question and the last question you asked.
Sure.
A lot of things Christians have to remember too is even when we're watching film or movies or TV shows, our worldview should never leave. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like I can watch stuff in Walking Dead and not agree with that and know that's wrong. Because for example, Christians will say you're being entertained by murder, you're being entertained by rape.
Right.
Like we're watching Walking Dead, like, yes, rape her, please, yes. Like, no, we're not entertained by rape. We're entertained by the film, that the film is good art and it's portraying reality. So we're entertained by the collection, but we're not entertained by, like if somebody blasphemes God, we don't go, yes. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's a lot of misconceptions that people have. But to answer your second question about Carol, personally, when I saw that, I mean, there's a few things that she could have done different. They could have, obviously, there's no government, etc., but they could have disciplined that girl, because she looked like she was like, I don't know, 11, 10, I don't know.
Right.
So they could have took her in as like parents and say like, hey, and show like we do with our kids, like there's consequences. Like you could have killed us all, you could have killed yourself. So we have to strongly discipline you in a loving way because we don't want you to die, not eliminate you. It almost reminds me of like a lot of the people that get abortions where it's like, well, the child is a hindrance, so let's get him out the way.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of how I took it. I looked at it as if, that was something that wasn't necessary, but I understand it, especially if I was lost. I probably, in a post-apocalyptic world, I'd be like, hey, she had to go. You know what I'm saying?
Gotta go.
For the good, yeah, for the good of the camp. But as a Christian, I would have said, hey, we've got to find another way, for that particular one, for that particular killing.
Well, and they discussed that. I mean, that was the interesting part of the show, was like, them sitting in that dark room and would look like the kitchen and stuff. Like, and Tyrese was like, well, maybe I just take Judith and I'll go, and it's interesting watching them wrestle through that decision.
Right.
And like, I mean, is there another choice in a post-apocalyptic scenario like that, where this girl literally just murders her little sister, saying, you'll see, like, she has such a complete misunderstanding about the walkers and what they are.
Yeah.
And so she is a legitimate threat to, because she had Judith there. Judith was going to be next, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, boy, how do we discipline? Like, how would we as Christians, like, okay, how can we turn this into a redemptive situation?
Yeah.
It's tough, man. I mean, but the thing is like, on the show, you see Rick at one point, right after what's her name, the wife dies.
Oh,
Yeah, he cracks, right? He goes a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, answering the telephone in the prison and talking to people who had already died. And Michonne, Michonne after that admitted that she went through that. So, like, you see people going in and out of psychosis in this situation. Who knows that little girl wouldn't have come out of that, dude? I don't know.
Yeah.
But,
Well, yeah, but the other thing is, like, kind of bringing, like, somebody kind of mentioned, like, or Jovan mentioned, there's no government, so there's no, like, way to, like, have the civil government, like, punish somebody, and that was, like, another question that was kind of going through my mind, like, if she's mentally ill, like, what responsibility would a functioning civil government have in that context, or is she, like, at what age do you kind of say you're responsible for this person's death, so therefore we have to mete out the death penalty on you? So, like, what's the age cutoff? What's the mental capacity cutoff? Is there one biblically?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
I would say the other situation with what's the guy's name? Gareth.
Okay.
mm-hmm.
I think his was, when I was watching it last night, my first thing was thinking, I hope he doesn't talk his way out of the church, if you call it, right?
Yeah.
So somebody like him, especially with no government, there's no police to hand him over to, or officials to where he can go and be given justice because of the crimes that he's already committed. So somebody like that, for the sake of the community and his posse, I would have been like Rick too. Like, you're not walking.
Gotta go.
Yeah, it's time to go. There's no cops to call. You're in that type of world. I agree with Len. It's time to go.
Mm-hmm. And he even said, like, yeah, we may not cross paths, but the next group you come across, they're your dinner. So
That's right.
I'm sorry, I talked over you, Scott. Go ahead.
No, it's fine. But it's basically like war. Like, you've basically got, like, as if there's, like, the two countries of their own. You've got, like, their own little. Rick's got his own little government of people, and it's as if they're fighting, like, a sort of another nation.
Yeah, I think once the society breaks down, like, the very local community, like that community of what if it, like, 10 people or 12 people, however many people it is, like, that becomes like a functioning government. And so you could look at it one of two ways. Like, and from a biblical perspective, you could say, okay, this is war between two opposing factions, and the rules of war kind of apply. Or you could say this person is operating outside, biblical law, and so therefore like he needs to have justice, and the only person here to do that is me. I'm like the highest ranking official, kind of. And plus he was a sheriff's deputy, I guess,
Yep.
in his prior life. So yeah, that kind of comes over. One other thing that I thought was kind of weird about the show, and I know that they did this in the comic book because it was a big deal on Twitter like right after this past show. But when Bob kind of laughs at Gareth and the cannibals and says, "You've just eaten tainted meat," that whole thing. My question was like, why would he like? Why would they put that in the show, but then like that not be a factor at all? It was almost as if like that was the perfect chance for like an ironic twist to the story where okay, now they become walkers just because they get like the just desserts they had for their evil, but like it really had no bearing on anything at all.
I think what it was, I could be wrong, because I watched Talking Dead after. I don't remember them mention it specifically, but when I saw it, I didn't think that they were actually infected by it. I thought it was just the mental aspect of them thinking that that's, you know what I'm saying? Like here they are mocking him. They ate his leg, and they're pretty much celebrating victory. Like, we got you. We're gonna take your people down, and he just starts going off like, you idiots, I'm already bit. You know.
Well,
and go ahead.
Well, I didn't realize. I thought that same thing, like, because if you remember, he was shot or something coming out of the prison. He had that wound when the three of them were in the woods, and what's her name gave him a hug, and he was like, wincing. I thought he was just showing them that wound. I didn't realize he was actually bit.
Yeah, and I think that was the reason why he was crying. He was like in the graveyard, kind of by himself and crying. Because he realized that he didn't have time to live anyway. So
right.
But the weird thing I thought was interesting is like, how did he get back at the church? Like, did they miss that?
The hunters dropped him off there, I would think.
Yeah, it had to be.
That's the tactical blunder.
It kind of is. I mean, there's some moments in The Walking Dead which are like just weird and don't make a whole lot of sense. I think that's more like the writers' sort of thing.
Yeah, it would have been much. I agree with you, though, Adam. It would have been much more interesting had they let those guys turn into walkers, and like when Rick and the gang, goes looking for revenge, like they come up on them and they're walkers, or like a couple of them become walkers and start eating the other ones, or something like that.
That would have been funny.
Yeah.
Well, it does like raise a question because they've been eating like people's bodies before, and so how does like the virus work with that? Because if you die, you turn, and I don't know. That's not something they explore too much in the show or in the comics, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some inconsistencies. Before I watched the show last night, I started watching the first episode of the first season, first episode, because like something struck me, like I wanted to see something, and I commented to a coworker, like the girl, there's a girl in the very opening scene, where Rick like ends up shooting like a little girl in the head. She's a walker, and he doesn't realize it until she turns around and she starts coming after him. But she bends down and picks up a teddy bear, and then so the walkers in like the first season, they do things like climb chain link fences, and they interact with other objects and stuff.
Yeah.
And then like all of a sudden, that doesn't apply anymore. It's like they don't notice anything. All they notice is like the smell of fresh meat. That's it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I know they talked about that some where they were saying like each season they try to change, not the storyline, but kind of make the walkers better or kind of make it to where it's more realistic. So I guess they probably recanted from, okay, if we have them picking up dolls and stuff, it makes them look like there's a human element there, So maybe they want to make it like, look, these people are truly walkers. They're not, they're not humans that need a cure. They're gone. Right. You know what I'm saying? So maybe they wanted to erase that human element, so that people, what's the guy's name? Garrett Morgan, for the black guy from season 1.
Yeah.
Remember when he was gonna shoot his wife, and that's a tough situation too, because I mean you got to be thinking like, man, what if my wife is still there? What if there is a cure?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And then you kill your wife. and then you're like, man, like so I think that probably was an element that they wanted to erase quickly, to be like, hey, we don't want any redeeming qualities in the walkers. Like, there's nothing good about them. The people are really dead. Like how they did when they went to the barn.
Yep.
Yep, and then they showed like, hey, they're like, and what's her name? Carol saw her daughter.
Right.
Like, hey, she's gone. Like, she's not, as much as she wanted to be like, hey, that's her. She knew like, hey, that's not her. And so I think that's probably why they did it, but I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, and the people that survive are really the people that can detach themselves from that situation. Because like the guy that you're talking about with his wife, like he kind of went crazy, in a way, because then I think he mention that his son was killed by his wife.
Yep.
Eventually, and like then he put a lot of blame on himself for not taking care of business when he had the chance.
Yeah.
And but like there's so even in the first season, I think that other thing with that guy was in the third or fourth season, like that when Rick back up with him.
Yeah.
It's kind of like this idea that there's still this, even throughout the show, there's this idea that like we might be able to cure people, or we might be able to fix this problem. Like the when they were in Woodbury.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like the one guy who was kind of like a nerdy kind of guy who was the right hand man of the governor. He was like looking for a cure, and he was performing tests on people, and then now you have Eugene in season 5 who's doing, supposedly has the cure to the whole mess. Which, can we discuss that for a second? Because
yes.
I think he's full of crap.
Yep.
That mullet just gives him away.
What are you talking about, Abraham?
No, Abraham is the guy with the flat top and the red beard.
Okay.
Soldier dude. Yeah.
Eugene is the supposed scientist who has a mullet and doesn't like.
Gonna save the world.
He's gonna save the world.
Oh, I got you.
Like, what is his deal? Any theories?
It's hard to say, bro. I think it's one or two things. Obviously, it's either legit or, I'm like, okay, so what could he possibly be trying to get to DC for? And why would he be so far away from DC and have the information for the cure? There's just some stuff there's some puzzle pieces that got to be put into place, because I'm not getting it, bro. It's like, we got to get to DC. Well, what's he doing in Georgia in the first place?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there's some government or some type of stuff behind it where it happened. I don't think at the end of the show they'll say like it was a natural outbreak. I think there'll be some type of human element that was involved in starting that type of virus. So he may have something to do with that and be like, hey, I need to get back to DC because I didn't know it was gonna, maybe he didn't know it was gonna start that early, and then he knows that if he can get to DC, he'll cure it. Or because of the depravity of man, we see like with the governor and people trying to take over and stuff, he may have some, ulterior things. But like, hey, if I can get to DC, man, I could eliminate this stuff and, kind of start my own, what I'm saying? I don't know. But it's type of wicked plot as well. And that's one thing I love too about The Walking Dead, as we talk about from a Christian worldview, is it shows you that death isn't even the biggest problem. It's humanity. It's sinful men that they think that the walkers are the problem. So you would think common sense would say, hey, let's all team up together. Governor, there's strength in numbers. We can feed each other. We can supply. We can do all this stuff. We can protect each other with more people. That way people can get rest, all kind of stuff. And they're sitting there fighting over land and, I need more guns. And you know what I'm saying? And that is exactly what humans do. Instead of using common sense, we're depraved. So we're only thinking about ourselves. We don't love our neighbor because we don't love God. And so I think that's a perfect element of the show, to show that really the evil people aren't the walkers, it's the humans.
Mm-hmm. And I think I read somewhere that somebody said that the Walking Dead, what is the title, is really, it describes the people. It describes the living people. So Scott, was that you telling me that?
That was me. It comes from a scene in the comic where Rick's just talking about just everything that they've gone through, and explains, we are the Walking Dead. We're the ones who have died. We've lost our humanity. It's not the dead. It's really us.
Wow.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, because everywhere you go, you see people just acting out crazy. And I think like, oh man, if in that type of world, when things really get that bad. But then like I've seen with my own eyes like just 2 hour delays on a train or something like that, and people start to get like really crazy,
Yeah.
or like in the airport, or just I've seen a lot of crazy stuff like where people are just getting really really like antsy and out of control, and like it's just minor inconveniences, let alone like no food, no water, no shelter.
Yeah. Natural disasters and stuff, people freak out. Even if it's like power loss, after 24 hours, people would start getting nervous and
Oh yeah.
going on. And
Yeah, and that's why I think a movie like the show, or a movie like The Purge like resonates with the population, because it's like they realize, I think, that like people are bad and they want to act out on that badness, and it's like the grace of God that's the only thing that's restraining them, and like they realize that like there is this idea that people, I don't know, people have this urge to just go against God and like just not follow His laws and things like that. So I feel like while it's a ridiculous concept, which would never work, like the concept is that people really are like deep down like really bad.
Yeah. I remember Terminator 2. You guys all saw that, right? Terminator.
oh, that's such a good movie.
My favorite part is when John Connor, as a kid, he asked Arnold Schwarzenegger. He said, "We're not gonna make it, are we?" When they had the fire at the park, and it was like a vision, and where everything like caught on fire, and he was like, "No," he said, "It's in humans to it's in your nature to destroy yourselves." Like pretty much saying, you guys are evil. It's in your nature to destroy yourselves. I thought that was awesome, man. Just hearing that, and like, yeah, that's so true. Like if it were left to us, especially if God didn't intervene, if He just let us live out our minds and our depravity, it would definitely be like Terminator 2. We would just destroy ourselves.
Yeah. Same thing happened in The Matrix. I mean, Agent Smith said like the people are the virus.
Yeah,
Same type of thing.
that's true.
Any other thoughts, guys? I guess one of the other things that I thought was really interesting was they kind of picked like a neutral type of preacher, like is it Episcopalian?
Oh yeah,
Like not too many, it wasn't like a Baptist or like a Catholic.
yeah.
It was like just somebody who's kind of like, they're if they get offended, if that group gets offended, like nobody really cares.
Yeah, yeah. That's funny.
They're from England anyway,
Right.
Republicans. But what? So like, do you have any predictions about the future of this guy? Was it his car that was taking Beth away? I mean, any ideas on what's going on?
You want to take it?
I don't think he's gonna last that long because he's basically spent this whole time basically locked up inside the church, and he hasn't really kind of dealt with this world and kind of the brutality that sometimes you have to be in order to survive. He hasn't really done any of that. So, I mean, at this point in the world, you're either tough or you're dead, and I'm not so sure he's gonna last that long.
Yeah, there are very few weak people, just Eugene maybe. And coming back to him though, I think that's the reason why, if you pay close attention, he didn't want to leave the church when Abraham said like we got to get on the bus and leave. Like he didn't want to go. And I think it's because he realizes like he really doesn't have, like he's really BSing everybody. Like he really doesn't have the cure. And he's like, well, maybe we should just stay here. But so yeah, any thoughts or about the preacher man?
I think he's gonna be a Judas figure. He's gonna betray somebody.
Yeah.
I think so.
Even if it's just through an act of cowardice, where he has the opportunity to save somebody and doesn't,
Yeah, I would like to think that maybe they're going to use him to try to redeem himself, because he did have an act of cowardice that didn't end up costing Bob his life anyway. Because
Yeah.
no, it was Rick that saved that Gabriel, right? Wasn't it?
Yes.
So yeah, like he was like cowering in the corner, So maybe they're setting him up to like his name is Gabriel.
Yeah. I you know what? When I was watching him cry part of me thought, man, he's a really good actor. There's something behind that. Maybe he's got some type of, maybe they're gonna find out that he's like Len was saying, maybe he's like a Judas figure, or he's not the guy they think he is.
Right.
He's a really good actor to save his life. But one thing I'm, even thinking about it, his story, especially if it's true, it reminds me of the type of Christianity today in America, which is everybody's, the world's going to hell. They're outside. We're in the church. We're safe. You know what I'm saying? Let's not get involved. Let's not risk our life to spiritually.
You're post-mill too, aren't you?
Oh, of course I'm post-mill. I believe the Bible, man. I was playing. I'm just playing, man. But yeah. So it just reminds me of this type of asceticism or just like kind of monk. Amish type, where it's like, hey, the world's out there, it's a scary place, the world's gonna get worse, it's already burning, going to hell, let's just leave it alone as long as we're in church, let's just cater to the people in here. And it's like, no, we're called to go out, we're called to engage the culture, we should be spreading the gospel, and we should be letting people know thus saith the Lord. But instead, the guy, he's in there hiding, and he's okay. And he's listening to the screams and everybody dying, and he's like, man, like, he was like, I'm damned. Where that kind of, it just almost seemed like he oversold it, to where I think, like Len said, he may end up being, whether it's cowardice or whether it's, he's a calculated a manipulator. I think that there's more to it, especially when Gareth died. I was thinking like, wow, who's going to be the bad guy now? Is it going to be an internal war? Is Carol or somebody going to go bad, or what's going to happen? So I'm kind of interested to see, will they run into another group of people, or is it going to be some internal things like, hey, Rick, I'm tired of you thinking you're the you're the Lord Jesus Christ. So hey, we're going to take over. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I think it's going to be something inwardly.
Yeah. Maybe he'll take dominion over Rick.
Hey, hope so, man.
No, man. Hey, since we're talking about the church, did anyone else notice the A on the side of the church? The red A? Like, what was that?
Oh, yeah.
The A, I think, from what I heard, I think the guys from Terminus put it up because if you remember, they at the end of season 4, the group was all in boxcar A.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was also thinking the Scarlet Letter, but that doesn't really apply in this instance. One thing I did notice about the episode was the title of the episode was Four Walls and a Roof, and Maggie said that toward the end after Gareth was killed, and Gabriel was like, "This is the Lord's house" or whatever, and she's like, "This is four walls and a roof," and I thought it was kind of profoundly theological, actually, to tell you the truth. I mean, it was from like multiple kind of perspectives. Any thoughts on that?
He has bad eschatology.
Huh?
I'm sorry, ecclesiology.
I thought it was good, man. I loved it because obviously we meet in a building as a church, whether it's somebody's house or a tent, or we meet together, we assemble, but the church is not where we meet. It's who meets. It's us gathering together, the body of Christ. So a lot of people, they are kind of have that almost like that. And there's a good way where you can do it, where you can reverence, you can know like, hey, this is the place where we worship the Lord, specifically on the Lord's Day. So you might want to have more reverence. But typically you have people, they have like this mystified, oh man, we're in the church now. Oh man, I've been cursing all week, but I won't do it in the church. I won't do it in the church, or just whatever, right? I've been living any kind of way, but I won't do it in the church. So it's like, no, this is not, the Lord does not dwell in temples. He dwells in people. And plus he's everywhere. So whether you're, doing something evil in a building or at your house, the Lord's still there. But so I thought that was awesome that they pointed that out. And I also thought it was awesome too that they said on, I think it was Talking Dead, that they purposely didn't want to film it in a real church, just because this is the way it was, that they kind of built like a little thing. So I thought that was cool too. They didn't use somebody's church too kind of, even though it's just a building and 4 walls, but I still thought that was cool that they kind of, they wanted to show some type of reverence.
That was nice.
So
anybody else want to bring up any
Beth
issues? Beth? Yeah.
Beth.
Oh, where's Beth? Yeah, that's a good point. Where is Beth?
The little cliffhanger that they left at the end of the show.
Yeah.
Well, they really left it at the end of episode 2, where like you saw the car like going away.
Right.
Yeah.
I must have missed it. I didn't see where Beth went, like where she got separated. When did that happen?
Separated, but there was this one episode where she was with Daryl, and they were inside this funeral home, and what happened was they got attacked by walkers. They had to escape, and they got separated, and Beth got taken by a car with like that cross on it, and Daryl chased after it, and that's how he came across the I think they're called the Claimers.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, the claim, yeah.
Claimed.
Yeah, I don't think they actually they mentioned the fact that they are called the Claimers in the comic book.
It's not like their official name. It's just.
Well, and I think in the comic book they actually call them the Claimers, and like the Hunters are called the Hunters in the comic book too. Yeah, that guy, the leader of that group is very creepy.
Yeah. I think who do you guys think that was with Daryl? Some people, I don't think it was Carol.
I don't know.
I didn't see it.
Okay.
Maybe it was Beth.
I that's what I'm wondering too, because the cliffhanger probably kind of makes that an impossibility, or like the preview to next week.
Yeah.
But I've been wondering for a while what they're gonna do with Beth, because she's like the meek little, wallflower girl who's navigating, in a way. There's a bit of a redundancy there, because that's kind of what Carol was, right? Like, like kind of the good girl gone bad kind of scenario. This meek, terrified, scared of her own shadow kind of lady who's really, and I love Carol. She's one of my favorite characters. So I was like, well, what are they going to do with Beth? Because they kind of already have that character. So one of them's got to go, and I don't think it's Carol. Carol and Daryl are too intertwined in this series. I don't think they can be separated at this point. So I'm very interested to see what happens with Beth.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna see Carol. Obviously Rick, Daryl. I think Glenn is expendable at this point.
Well, and they left the group. So I mean, at some point they gotta hook the two groups up again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if they're gonna bring in a storyline, because is Maggie pregnant? Did I?
I don't think so at this point in the story.
Because for some reason, I was thinking
later on she is, but at this point I don't think she is.
Yeah.
Really? Then maybe I jumped ahead. Maybe I was reading something online.
Oh, but probably at this point they probably should be.
Yeah.
Probably should be at this point.
Yeah.
How dumb do you gotta be to get knocked up in a zombie apocalypse? Come on, people.
Well, they don't have
they still have sinful desires, man.
Didn't they get married though? I think they actually
did, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right, they did. Yeah, so that's good. So yeah, they still have desires, Hey.
Gotta find comfort somehow in the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, you probably want to engage more when the zombie. You're like, hey man, we got some type of a few minutes. Like, man, we're gonna die soon anyway. So
yeah, for tomorrow we die.
yeah. So. But,
that's zombies for tomorrow we die.
One of my favorite. Okay, maybe we can get kind of wrapped up here, but I wanted to leave you with one of my favorite lines. I can't quote it verbatim, but one of my favorite lines from the entire show was when Herschel was like, he mentioned that Jesus promised the resurrection from the dead, but he didn't think it would be quite like this.
Yeah.
That I love Herschel. I'm sorry he's gone.
Yeah, dude.
Anybody else have a favorite moment, line, character, plot point?
I love. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I actually loved what's his name, Rick's son. when he started like changing.
Yeah.
When he started getting like kind of just this bad guy, not bad guy in like in the evil sense, but I mean he was just kind of like, his heart started like he started just becoming like a soldier. He at first he was like this scared little boy, and it's like he became a man, and just doing what needed to be done. Even when I think it was it him and Herschel, kind of where Herschel told his dad like, hey, watch him or whatnot, and it seemed like he was gonna go over the edge, and then he kind of came back to earth.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I was thinking like, man, he's gonna be a loose cannon and it's not gonna end well.
Yeah,
But
so
he simmered down. So
yeah. So I like that a lot, man. And but I think I would say my favorite / saddest part was seeing Daryl and Meryl, man. How Meryl went out,
yeah,
seeing his brother, man, and it was just kind of like, yeah, that was awesome.
that I forgot about that. Yeah, that was a great scene.
And he had to kill him, man. So I thought that was my favorite, man. That stood out to me.
Been driving, and that's what kind of like what Daryl's been driving after, finding his brother, and just go out.
Yeah.
Hurts.
Any other favorites?
Well, speaking of Herschel, there was that one. There was this one line in season 4 where he was going to help like the people who were sick from like the virus, and he was like going. I don't remember the exact quote, but the only thing you could risk your life for is the only thing you choose is how you risk your life or something like that.
Yeah.
But I thought that was like just a powerful scene from him. It just kind of exemplified who he was and what kind of person he was.
There's biblical implications I think to that too, like the idea that like we're all gonna die. It just depends on how you're gonna spend your life, what you're gonna do with it, and if it's gonna count for anything.
Yeah.
How about you, Len?
I've just really loved watching the way they develop all the characters, dude. Like Daryl, being like this lone wolf kind of country boy, and really, in the beginning questioning if he even really wanted to be with the group. It's kind of clear he didn't want to be there, but he needed them to at least, survive, and like I say, to find Merle. And he would probably split after that, but then just coming to realize like he needs the group. And then when he finally finds Merle, and he decides to like go back to the prison, and he says to Merle, he said, I'm walking away, but you're the one who's leaving. Like when they have that kind of, and they're arguing about their childhood and everything and how they came up and stuff.
Yeah,
that's one of my favorite moments. But dude, all the there's so many great the way the characters have developed. Glenn's character, when Glenn tied to that chair took out that walker, bro, and like when he took out the walker and he's like, he's like Clay Matthews, like beast mode. It's like that was awesome too. Mm-hmm. And another favorite thing about The Walking Dead is the YouTube channel Bad Lip Reading.
I love those.
Check that out.
Oh, you got to just search bad Lip Reading Walking Dead. It is,
I did see one of those.
They are ridiculous. They got music videos.
The one scene where Beth and Daryl are like arguing, and they're saying something crazy. I love that. I love stuff like that.
Hey, just a disclaimer, man. Bob, when he got caught by Terminus, I can just speak for my African American family. You would never catch a black guy in a post-apocalyptic world outside by himself. Just to let you know, especially in the dark. We're not separating from anybody. So that's totally not real.
Yeah. There's a monster movie stereotype about that I'm not going to go for.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they always die. No, that was funny because everybody asked that I've heard want to know what Walking Dead, especially what's the first black guy's name. There was Morgan, and what's the other guy that him and Meryl got into
T-Dog.
T-Dog. The main question people want to ask is,
character.
How long will they last? Because they're going to die first. Yep. Yeah. So usually in the movies you have the black people die first. I'm like, nah, that's just stuff that we don't, just certain stuff when, if I walk in my house and I hear something, I'm not going to say, honey, is that you? And she's supposed to be in Hawaii. No, it's just not happening. So, we're not gonna go out that easy. So that was funny. I think a lot of black people were cracking up with the whole Bob thing. Like he's just outside crying. Nah, that's not us.
But he did taste better than they thought. They said.
Yeah. The barbecue sauce.
Barbecue sauce. Yeah. Well, there was there was. I mean, as soon as that episode was over, you saw like all these memes for like shish kebab. It was all shish kebab, and then like as soon as this last episode was over, the hashtag tainted meat just like took over.
That's his laugh, man. I'll never forget his laugh, man. That's probably my second or third, top 5 funny, best things about the show. That laugh, man, when he was like, "You guys are all eating tainted meat."
Oh yeah, that's a line from the comic book too.
They're spitting it out like, "Why you didn't know? Why you didn't check?" That's hilarious, man.
That's because you're complacent, and complacency kills you.
There you go. So, Jovan, you want to tell us real quick before we jump off where people can get in contact with you, follow what you're doing, and just kind of generally check out what you got going on?
Yeah, they can check me out at jovanmackenzy.com. That's JOVANMACKENZY.com. I'm a reformed rapper, Christian rapper, whatever you want to call me. So I do music from a Christian worldview. I'm also an intern at my church, pastoral internship here in Fall River, Massachusetts. I've been up here for 5 months so far. So yeah, man, if people want to get in touch with me, they can do so there. And just dropped a new album called All Hell in May. So they can check that out.
Yeah, that's some post mill right there.
Yeah, it's definitely post mill. Just a disclaimer.
Yeah,
a disclaimer.
That's good stuff.
But definitely
cool.
Lord.
Yeah, well, I'll put in the show notes on the YouTube page. I will put your information in there so people get a hold of you. Len, where can people hear about what you're up to?
BibleThumpingWingnut.com. Right on the homepage, you can hear our most recent episode where Tim was at the Herald Society with you, Adam.
Yes, it was.
And that great picture with you and Jeff Durbin and Tim. So, yeah, BibleThumpingWingnut.com. Yeah, we had an interview with Jeff Durbin, Side Tim Bruggencade, and Jeff Rose. And next week we'll have interviews from I think Tony Miano and Chris Sipley. I think he talked to all the speakers. So you can listen live on Mixlr.com on Saturday mornings at about 10:30 Central Time. That's Mixlr.com. If you want to hear the live, raw, interesting, right? Unedited, uncut. So,
all right, cool.
Yeah, man, BibleThumpingWingnut.com.
Scott, do you say you have a blog or something, or?
Yes. I am. My goal is to be a novelist, so I do have like some social media presence. I have a blog at scotthowardphillips.wordpress.com. I'll put it in the description. I'll put it as a comment after the show's over. And from there, I have various social media: Facebook, Twitter. I was starting to blog more often, and I talk about a bunch of different things, like a bit of philosophy, a bit of just a bit of political stuff. Although I haven't done that recently. Just general preparedness gear stuff will be coming up soon. So
cool. Thank you very much. We really appreciate you joining us this evening.
Thanks for having me.
Sure, and I'm Adam Moore, one of the hosts of Reformed and Reloaded. You can get us at reformedandreloaded.com, on iTunes. We're on Facebook. We're trying to take over. So, yeah, thanks for watching, and maybe we'll see you again soon. Take care.
Bless.